many VTubers, the idea of being able to support themselves full-time off their VTubing activities is incredibly alluring. Who in their right mind would want to sit at a boring office job all day when they could be a cute anime character on the internet instead, right? Well, you might be surprised to hear, as I once was, that that's not always the case. Full-time VTubing isn't going to be the right fit or even possible for everyone, and not just for financial reasons either. A lot of it has to do more so with who you are as a person, with what makes you in particular tick, and what your drive pushes you to do. In this community, we all have extremely varied backgrounds and interests, but the one thing that unites us all is a love for VTubing on some level. Whether VTubing takes the form of watching others do it, assisting VTubers from an art, production, or management position, or VTubing yourself on the side or as a full-time gig. But most VTubers are not full-time streamers unless they're in a corporation that supports them really well, they have a great manager acquiring sponsorships that pay the bills, or are in the upper 10% of indie VTubers. And some treat this inability to be full-time as a failure, as something that's a result of not working hard enough, not doing the right things, or something else, and I'd like to make a case for why I don't agree with those sentiments. In order to do that, I'd like to reference an interview of Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, in which she discusses the difference between a hobby, job, career, and vocation, and the way that success looks different for every single person. Stick with me here. I'd suggest checking out the interview yourself, as while I don't agree with all of it, especially her bits on laziness and being a burden, I do still think it's an eye-opening watch. I got a link below if you're interested. That being said, for our purposes, let's get into the whole hobby versus job versus career versus vocation bit, because these words are so often confused or interchanged with each other, and I'll explain my thoughts on how this all relates to VTubing right after. A hobby is something you do for pure enjoyment, not to make a living from. You feel no need to impress anyone with it. When you're exhausted after a long day, it's comforting to get to come home and unwind spending time on it. There are zero stakes in a hobby. If you suddenly switched up to a new one, you wouldn't be wrecking a whole quadrant of your life or landing in financial insecurity as a result. You don't have to have one, but you will suffer from lack of enrichment in your enclosure if you don't. Being a hobbyist at something is, in many ways, if you ask me at least, a lost skill today, with the constant pushes to monetize your hobby or to have to show it off on social media. But when you do those things, it often ceases to be something done just for the joy of it, right? Many artists, musicians, educators, and now VTubers, unless they've made it big, are repeatedly told that the work they're doing is just a hobby, unless they're already famous for it, like something being a hobby is an insult. There is nothing wrong with having art or music or VTubing or something else as a hobby, but I'd argue that for a lot of people, those subjects go far beyond the scope of a hobby. A job, on the other hand, is something you do have to have. A job is what pays the bills. It's the thing you have to do to survive in our capitalist society. It's the retail or customer service or other work you do that, while it gives you money, isn't inherently fulfilling on some emotional or higher level. It's something you do because you have to survive. And strangely enough, once again, having one is something that is so often looked down upon. Someone saying that something is just a job, or critiquing someone for not aspiring to more than having a job, despite the fact that everyone has had a job or even many in their lives, and that some jobs can pay so well or keep you stable with enough free time that they aren't worth moving on from. Not all jobs are horrible and soul-crushing, hard to believe, I'm sure, but I swear to you they're out there. I've had them, you will find them eventually too. No, don't give up. To take a job one step further into being something you love and find fulfilling would be what transforms it then into a career. A career is something where your passion and drive to do it are so powerful that you don't mind making sacrifices for it. You don't mind working longer hours or changing large aspects of your life to accommodate and support it, and doing those things, within the realm of reason of course, doesn't make you love the work less. If you don't love your career, the thing you're making sacrifices for, if the passion drives up, then what is the point of doing it? Find a job you don't hate or another career instead, and save yourself the hardship of being bled out by something you've lost your passion for. Many of our parents are in careers, and I'd say most of them have wound up hating them. But due to the way society treats careers and jobs, they refuse to leave those positions and spend a not insignificant amount of time hating their lives as a result. I don't want that for you. And finally, above all else is your vocation. The thing you were put on this earth to do, to create, to share with others. This is the thing that no one and nothing can ever take away from you, and even an attempt to do so would change you into an entirely and wholly hollowed out shell of a human being. Your vocation is the thing that is sacred to you, that despite all else, you'll strive to put out into the world long before anyone ever knows your name and far after they've forgotten you too. It's the mark you will strive to make. For my creatives, those who would probably suffocate in a world or time where they couldn't draw or write or make music, for those of you who have the deepest need to create something, regardless of anything or anything else, this is your vocation. And the important thing here is how you shape your life around that vocation. For some, a vocation can be a job. Writers sometimes get into journalism, and maybe it's not the writing they wanted to do, but it still kind of scratches that itch to create and puts food on the table while leaving plenty of time to engage in the vocation in the evening after work's over. For some, a vocation can even become a career. Artists become professors sometimes, getting to teach what they're so deeply inherently passionate about, but sacrifice the time to engage in their vocation outside of work as a result, rarely getting to make any personal artwork. And for many, the vocation stays as just that, a vocation. A job is pursued to support it and allow time for it to thrive, or an unrelated career is taken and it's all but sacrificed. All of these options, believe it or not, are absolutely valid paths to take in life. And after my mini definitions and sort of pep talk here, you might be wondering why I'm bringing this up in relation to Vtubing. And it's because I think it's important for us to understand the distinctions between these types of work and to determine for ourselves what the right path is for us. There are individuals for whom Vtubing fits each of these categories. The Vtubers who have other jobs or careers and stream just purely for the fun of it as a hobby. The Vtubers who do everything in their power to monetize it, market themselves, and make Vtubing into a part-time or full-time job, maybe despite wishing for a career elsewhere. The Vtubers who have made a career out of Vtubing, who love it wholly and make sacrifices of time and sleep and more to make it work, because their passion and drive propels them through it, and they wouldn't be satisfied with a job. And finally, the Vtubers who, should Twitch or YouTube suddenly shut down, or should they stream to 3,000 or 3,000 viewers for years, have found that their reason for being here is to entertain and uplift us through their digital existence, and they probably aren't going anywhere anytime soon. For many Vtubers, especially some agency ones, I'd argue that Vtubing is actually a job, and this plays a major role in graduation rates. Hopefully, corporate Vtubing pays the bills, but if recent events with the collapses of several agencies are anything to go off of, being an agency VTuber can be exactly as soul-crushing as that retail job you hated was. VTubing isn't something everyone wishes to do forever either. Sometimes it's a stepping stone to reaching greater aspirations, and so VTubers will graduate to strive for their career or a better, more stable job instead. And as a community, we have to learn to be okay with this. Nothing is forever, and sometimes that's absolutely for the best. Having said that, the VTubers going above and beyond for VTubing are often the careerists, but that doesn't make them inherently less likely to graduate or move on, at least not in my eyes. I'm sure you can pick these guys out in any agency, and most of your top 10% of indie VTubers are probably doing this as a career too, whether it's a vocation or not, because they're passionate and driven about it. Agencies often expect their talents to be careerists. They expect individuals to make sacrifices for their corporation, to work longer hours, to go above and beyond what a regular job would. And that's all become a part of the culture of overworking present in VTubing, but some talents are still more than happy to be a part of it regardless. This culture has trickled down into the indie sphere, however, pressuring everyone to treat VTubing as they would a career, sacrifices and all, and causing individuals who aren't treating it that way to be critiqued for supposedly not taking things seriously enough. Being in an agency also isn't the only way to have a successful career as a VTuber. I agree with Yam and many others that the future is indie. Look at VTubers like Shy Lily or tons of others, where often the biggest step to turning your job as a VTuber into your career is investing into good management. And at the end of the day though, even career VTubers sadly may end up graduating and moving on too when the passion dries up, when they find a better, more stable career, or when they decide they'd rather have a regular job and fix their sleep schedule and have more time for their true calling. The only VTubers that stand the test of time, who will continue regardless of the industry, audience interests, and more, are those vocational VTubers. If they graduated, it would crush them so totally as people. They're the ones that we'll still see active in 10 years when the VTubing craze has changed or died down, still doing things the way they always have. After saying this, it probably isn't great to assume which kind of VTuber someone is, because you never truly know who they are or what goes on behind the scenes, but do take examples of these different paths existing as a reassurance that there are infinitely many valid ways to pursue something like VTubing. For so long, many people in creative fields like the arts or music or now VTubing have struggled to be taken seriously when it comes to their work because society loves to treat success as a one-size-fits-all, but the end goal is having an exorbitant amount of money when that isn't the reality. This is where all the unemployed, starving artist stereotypes come from. We're afraid to tell others we're a VTuber or streamer or artist or musician or even educator because those professions aren't seen as serious enough careers. To the general public, they aren't seen as something that there's enough work in or as something that'd be possible to live off of, whether that's actually true or not. We're treated as if we're nonsensically building a life around a hobby, when that isn't the case at all. And I propose that the first step to making others take us seriously in our professional paths is that we need to take ourselves and others more seriously too, regardless of which of these paths they're choosing. Many VTubers hate their day jobs and consider the fact that they still have them to be a failure on their part by not making VTubing profitable enough. And I think they're being far too hard on themselves. We should be working harder to normalize the concept of working to support our passions until our passions can support us, while ignoring the nonsense naysayers out there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having another job as a VTuber. We can also normalize the idea that for most VTubers, they will, unfortunately or not, have to have day jobs, which there's also nothing wrong with. Some VTubers quit their day jobs far too early into VTubing as a result of this internalized pressure to make a sustainable job or career out of it in order to put all of their into it. But I wouldn't advise doing that either. That's putting all your eggs in one basket. Financial stability is a must to survive. Even if VTubing is to be your career or is your vocation, you have to build yourself a framework in order for that to be financially feasible. It can take months or years to develop the viewership and fan base that will be required for financial security. Don't rush it. Personally, I feel really strongly about all this because it took me existing on this earth for 25 years before someone told me it was okay to just have any old job so long as it supports you enough that you can pay the bills and pursue your hobbies or vacations still. And, in talking to my students as I do, none of them have ever heard this either most of the time. Their families actually tell them the opposite. I think there is infinitely way too much pressure out there to find a career. I make a living as an artist just fine without one, much to the disbelief of many, and I'm here to tell you so that you hopefully won't have to go as long as I did not hearing these things either. Also, I started VTubing as a hobby. It was a form of creative expression that wasn't being fulfilled in my daily life and day job that brought joy without feeling a need to prove myself to anyone and just kind of made me happy. Pretty simple, right? But, dangerously, because of YouTube, this video making part of VTubing became monetized, and I started relying on it to help make ends meet. And it became a part of my 3D freelance business marketing too. While I wasn't paying attention, VTubing has become a job for me. One of several that I have, and this isn't necessarily bad, but I think that recognizing it is important. Now, I stress about creating videos on a schedule, worry about how I present or market myself, and a lot of the joy of it has changed into something else. I've seen too many VTubers go down this path too, where the joy of VTubing falls away at the hands of meeting video deadlines, the stress of partner pushing, or something else. Being financially reliant on something as potentially unstable as VTubing can be terrifying, and I have a lot of respect for those who can make it work, but it isn't something that's for everyone, and I don't want everyone to ruin the joy of it all for themselves. I personally don't really long for a career. I've chosen a path of working multiple jobs so that I can preserve my vocations, which are a mixture of artistic pursuits and, a deep longing to help others, as maybe corny as that sounds. Working jobs that check some of the boxes on my vocations, like teaching or VTubing and 3D modeling, allow me enough money to afford survival while leaving enough time for my artistic endeavors. And it's more than enough for me, and if something like that is for you too, do not let others belittle you for it. So all in all, I hope this got some wheels turning for you and maybe possibly reassured you in your plans for the future in some way. I'll get off my soapbox here now. I hope you enjoyed the TED Talk. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, VTubing or art or otherwise related, let me know in the comments below, and good luck out there. Take care of yourselves. It's pretty crazy these days. Farewell for now. Hi, editing Iiji here. Sorry for all the dropped frames and media offline bits in there. I fought a losing battle against, for some reason, that just happening constantly, and I lost the willpower to do it after I deleted 73 manually. Thank you. Sorry. Bye.